Good morning, everybody. I think we'll get started. We are here today to introduce you to St. John's new Social Justice Advocacy Program. I'm joined by Rhee, a consultant who's been working with us for some time now on setting up the program. Those of you from Faith in Action have met Anna, and others of you that attended our forum series back in 2018 on civil discourse may also have seen Anna then when she came in and presented on advocacy issues. She brings many, many years of experience in bringing faith-based communities to all levels of government and policymakers to make sure their voices are heard. So together we're here to introduce you to this new Social Justice Advocacy Program. So first question is, why are we doing this? And as you'll see from everything I'm going to pull up here, which isn't even everything that's going on these days, we have a lot going on in the parish already in terms of social justice. We have the intense effort that the congregation sustained over many, many months in the resettlement of the Kamberi family, actually not once but twice because they just moved. We have our broader support of immigrant and refugee issues more generally. Our work on gun violence prevention, our work in the Holy Land and all of the issues. We have development support, education outreach, peace advocacy. There we do other international outreach through many organizations, including the Episcopal Relief and Development Fund. We do local outreach and support through many organizations, including Bethesda Cares. We have a very strong eco-action team here in the parish, and you just heard Sari talk about a lot of the initiatives that are coming up this spring. We're taking a leadership role in the Faith Community Advisory County of Montgomery County. We gather books for prisoners. We hold workshops on race and social justice, and we joined Communities United Against Hate, through which we support youth programs, youth grants, mentoring youth in their grant projects on social justice across the county. There's about 44 ongoing youth projects. We also are leading a interfaith dialogue series, and every year we host their annual fundraiser, Taste of Communities United. And this is not everything that the parish is doing. This is all that I could fit on one page. And we're going to have a forum, I think, in May to go over some of the specific outreach programs in support that the Party with a Purpose is going to support. So another reason why we're doing this is that our presiding bishop, Michael Curry, has issued, in effect, a call to action. And in addition to the quotes that you see from him up on the screen here, he was one of the main authors of the Reclaiming Jesus statement, which was the basis for the civil discourse program that we did in the fall of 2018, which urges everyone to get involved at all levels of government and make your voice heard. So what is our social justice advocacy program? Together with Anna, we came up with a mission statement in which it is designed to support Faith in Action's commitment to social issues of concern to the parish, and it seeks to identify opportunities for engagement and offer tools for effective advocacy on issues of concern. So how did it come about over the last year? Well, it starts with the growth that we just talked about. It's dramatic, exponential growth in the social justice work that the parish is doing. So we applied for and got 2 grants from the Norwood Parish Fund to fund a consultant to help us build a more formal program. Phase 1 of that was the last 6 months, where we were developing an organizational framework and a 6-month advocacy program. We're sort of taking it in 6-month chunks. Phase 2 is what we're getting ready to launch, which is starting in April, where we're going to implement the 6-month advocacy plan, and we're going to work internally with the parish interests and also externally with community interests, both to expand and refine the program to make sure that it's meeting our needs. And then for the future, starting, next October onward, we're just going to continue to evolve and see where this thing goes, and where the issues, where consensus is found on different issues. So the last 6 months, we've spent a lot of time coming up with sort of an organizational framework for the program. It's based in the Faith in Action Coordinating Committee, and it's managed by a 3-parishioner working group to start, and anyone that wants to join is welcome, and it's supported by our consultant, Rhee. The Faith in Action will review and prioritize the issues, the advocacy strategy, specific engagement points, and then set the agenda for each 6-month period. Then our vestry liaison will share that agenda with the vestry just to make sure that they're on board, or to give us any comments, so we can facilitate ongoing support. So over the last 6 months in Faith in Action, it was determined that the initial focus of the program would be on these 5 issues, which are social justice and racial equity, refugee support and immigration, affordable housing, food insecurity, and gun violence prevention. And it was also determined that the first focus of the program is going to be on the Montgomery County Council and issues in our direct community. Engagement is going to be based on the work we're already doing in the parish, and the identity and the issues that were identified by Faith in Action, which are the ones we just went over. And so, why the county? As opposed to national work or state work. And as we're getting this program off the ground, we see this sort of as a starting point and a learning opportunity to sort of get our hands around what needs to be done and how we can be most effective. And it allows us the opportunity of direct engagement in our immediate community, and having a larger relative impact than if we were to start off trying to go into some national issue. And then also it ties in with current things that we're doing, including taking a leadership role in the county's council on interfaith communities. So phase 2 is where we are now. We are, and Anna's going to bring you through this in a lot more detail. We're beginning the process of building productive relationships with the county policymakers. We're going to continue identifying and working with community partners, and we're also going to work within St. John's to make sure that we are supporting the ongoing social justice work here first. So. And then after that, our mandate is to support the, what's going on here. So as that evolves and changes, we expect the program will also evolve and change. So, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell of how we came to be with this issue. If there's any questions on that, or we could go ahead to Anna's presentation on phase 2 and then take questions at the end. And it looks like that works. And then she falls down.
Turn this on now.
Yeah.
Technology. Okay, is that, everybody hear me? Okay, nice to see you all again. And that quick run through is a good reminder to us on the roots of social action in the parish. So just a visual on the Montgomery County Council. As Lisa mentioned, the initial focus is going to be on getting to know the council and also helping the council get to know us and the program that, not only this program, but the vast agenda that you all have on social justice issues. Right now, and he just became the president, is Sidney Katz. So District 3 is sort of the center of the county, kind of the Rockville, Gaithersburg area. He's the former mayor of Gaithersburg, but he's currently the county president, county council president, with Tom Hucker being the vice president. Typically, the vice president becomes the president next year. Andrew Friedson in District 1, the parish address is located in District 1. So do you all know who your county council member is? Okay, excellent. So how many of you are in District 1? And have you had many interactions with the county council member? And he knows you?
So the at-larges.
And, yes, and the at-larges. But in terms of, so, and do you, I actually didn't ask Lisa this question. Does Friedson know the parish?
He's been here for a couple of KUA events, I believe.
Okay.
And I know him because St. John's is a member of the executive committee of the Faith Community Advisory Council, which is the county council.
Right.
So we sit down with them every quarter, I think, or and have lunch. We just had lunch with the whole county council.
Right.
And we invited a number of these folks to come and speak. I think Will Joando's teed up, right?
Right. The at-large members play an important role in terms of being able to float around and go around the county and be a kind of ombudsman on a variety of issues. So they're wonderful. So that's great. So since you have contact with the entire council, you know a lot of them and sort of their priorities and where they're located. So that's a very helpful resource.
And you asked about Andrew Friedson. I understand he's very interested in NGOs, nonprofits, churches, other faith communities that can do things that will mean the county doesn't have to hire staff.
Right, exactly.
He wants to work to empower faith communities that are involved in the support.
Right, I mean, all of their offices have 2 to, I think, 4 maybe staff members, and they get so many requests. You know, as we know, Montgomery County is such an active place with many, many different diverse interests and very engaged and well-educated population. So they do get many, many requests for speaking. They and their staff members are out all the time in the community to address constituents. So anyone who's willing to do extra work for them is always welcome. So I think that that kind of partnership, especially with Friedson's office, probably Katz, and any of the at-large members that are interested in the agenda of the parish is a good thing. So this is just another visual for the county and the district representations. Okay. So as you all know, with the county council, the representatives are largely responsible for budgetary issues for the overall county, planning, zoning. And so one of the challenges, I think, for social justice activists is how do we get the social justice agenda sort of dovetailing with their business, what they consider their business. And I think that there are always ways to see riders or additional pieces of legislation or actions of the council that address the issues that we are concerned about, and in partnership with other organizations as well. I think this is a little bit out of order, but that's my fault. So, and also committees. Has anybody gone to committee meetings, watched them on live stream, or testified or spoken to? Okay, so what are some of the examples that we have of having spoken to, representing the parish or yourself or another organization, having testified or spoken to a committee or a hearing? Anybody?
Not speaking, but when they're talking about the development around here,
Uh-huh.
none of us went necessarily did speak
Uh-huh.
about the interest of the church and what's going to happen next door in the immediate neighborhood.
Okay, so planning specific in the neighborhood here, local to the parish. Mm-hmm.
Didn't Jan McNamara testify before on behalf of the gun violence legislation she did last year? When she had a lot of anti.
With the county council. So these are the standing committees. Friedson happens to be on the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, as well as the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee. So at least for our own council member, those are the touch points for him. But getting to know more about the priority of each committee, the leadership of each committee, the priorities of the county council president, as well as the priorities of the chairs of each committee, will help us even further narrow down how we want to be engaged with the offices. So for phase 2, our focus is on continuing to identify and develop relationships with congregations and community partners. This congregation and parish are very rich in terms of your relationships with community partners. So we want to talk more about how to utilize those relationships in building up this social justice advocacy program, as well as identifying staff contacts in the key council members' offices and sitting down, talking with them about how we can work together, how we can support what they're doing, and how they can support what our priorities are. And the purpose of doing this is to expand the program and also introduce St. John's to the offices, as well as identify opportunities for support and advocacy on the issues, the priority issues. So in terms of how to get to those goals, we want to identify possible collaboration. And that includes talking with some of you all who are parts of other groups within the parish that are issue specific. Like, how can this all work together to support increasing St. John's advocacy witness in the county and beyond? And some of the specific strategies will be to get to know council member priorities so that they know that there's a benefit to them from partnering with us, the committee agendas and their timeline, so when we can actually connect with them, and then the potential legislative handles and opportunities for advocacy. So advocacy can take different forms, right? It's specific to calling, writing our council members, meeting with their staff or meeting with the council members themselves, inviting them here, and showing up at hearings to either speak or just to let them know that we're interested in the issues. Just want to go on to any questions and answers to deepen our discussion about the Social Justice Action Program, and any of you have any suggestions or questions about phase 2.
I know some churches in this area, synagogues, they work towards, they advocate with the county council, but they do it through Action in Montgomery. And I wonder if you're familiar with them, or whether, I mean, should we be partnering with them to do this? I don't know. I have a friend in my water aerobics class who seemed like she's always going to county council hearings on a bus from Cedar Lane Unitarian Church.
I think that's one of the community partners that we're talking about in having conversations with, to see what their priorities are, what the St. John's priorities are, where there are opportunities to work together, and when there are times when St. John's wants to be its own as part of the Anglican Episcopal voice. I think there are times when those partnerships work well, and other times when they want to be done separately. Go ahead, Sabrina.
I just wanted to make a general comment from the last luncheon that the Faith Community Advisory Council had with the County Council. Will Jawando, who's one of the at-large members, made a fairly impassioned plea to us to get our congregations to be more active in civic engagement. He's a big proponent of faith communities engaging in this kind of business, and encouraged us. I hope he's going to come and speak to us, Jay. Let me know if I can help with that.
What's his definition of civic engagement?
He means talking to them about what we think are important priorities in the policy making of the County Council. And that's exactly what Anna and Lisa are telling us about today. So.
I have a comment for the future. I would say that there are a fair number of St. John's parishioners who live in the district. It's not, I mean, we're so close to the border, and so I realize that you got to walk before you run, but I would like, there are some important issues that you know, dovetail of concern to the district residents. So I would like to just put that in the back of the head. I find listening to this, I keep saying to myself, even though obviously I care about what we're all doing together, that all this Montgomery County focus is like, well, why should I care? And I realize that it's because of the substance, but you know, me calling somebody from Montgomery County isn't going to help very much. So I just wanted to comment.
Hi, my name is Sari, and I wanted just to respond one thing to Margaret said and then ask a question. Action in Montgomery, to be, to be a part of AIM, they require 1% of your operating budget. And this is one of the reasons why in the past there was a big debate around that, to be a partner parish. And so there's just some history here at St. John's with that. It's sad that we're not starting from like a 0 to consider that. We're starting from -10 because of some of the negative history related to that. But Action at Montgomery is amazing. They're doing great work, and I love that kind of stuff. The other thing I wanted to ask is this fits so well, just even when we talk about the local community, which when we talked about our vision process and our vision statement, all this fits really, really nicely with that. And it's really nice to see how it's taken on a life of its own. And one of the things that we've been so moved by at St. John's is that it's a grassroots effort. Like, it's been truly, all this stuff has, like the stuff when we did the vision process, we were trying to deliver a product to the church, and the church basically said, we're not interested in that. But it was the grassroots efforts, and I sit here and I can't believe how exciting this is that we're here. I haven't been a part of most of this stuff. It's just happening because we've cultivated a space at St. John's where this is working. My question is, how do we, as we move forward, stay super committed to the grassroots level so that we don't end up a year or two from now realizing that we've created something and we're asking people to plug into something, as opposed to, I just don't know how that happens, because oftentimes things just get stifled when you try to institutionalize something. And so I'm not making assumptions. I want that to be in our minds and see if there's been any thought around this, because I think it's super important.
So to answer that, we do.
To answer that, we do want to be very mindful of exactly that, and to keep the organic flow and development and grassroots development. And I think, and that's something we're trying to build in specifically, and why we're going to sort of review and refocus every 6 months to make sure that we're capturing what the parish's interests are, and what the opportunities are, and what the national landscape is, and all of those different things that go into it. And that's certainly the conception or the conceptual idea of the program, but we did have to put some kind of structure in. And so I think what we're envisioning is that anyone that has interests can bring them to Faith in Action and join Faith in Action, talk to everybody, and it can easily, I think it will organically grow and hopefully flourish, but we are mindful of that.
So, Anna, I guess a question, as somebody that I don't have a great history of political activism, I wonder if you can kind of speak to the question of expectations. So maybe through your history with other parishes, what are reasonable expectations from this type of engagement? What would you consider, like, what would success look like after a year of doing this? Any thoughts on that?
Kind of depends on your perspective or how you define success. From an organizing perspective, I think success would be awareness among the parishioners in the congregation of the social action opportunities. So once we start with the letter writing opportunities, and I know that there are other groups within the parish that do things like this, like letter writing and things like this, but to know that there's sort of this larger umbrella opportunity to engage with the county council. So one success measurement is knowledge across the congregation about this opportunity. Another would be the number of people who are engaged and how they feel like, oh, I really want to do this to get to know our county council better, represent St. John's more broadly around these social justice issues, and just feel a pride of ownership in the congregation broadly of this sort of activity. A measurement on another side is county council members knowing more about St. John's priorities, and when they're thinking about partners that they can work with on some of their own priorities, they think of St. John's, and they call the church, or they say, how can we work together on this? So those are sort of two related but important measurements. Does that sort of answer your, okay. Yep. Are you answering this question too?
Oh, no, I had it.
Okay, did anybody else have other measurements they want to add? No? Yeah? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I guess from my perspective, I get a little worried about the going for breadth of topics versus depth and passion. Like when I saw that first slide, I'm reminded of a food court. And you never get, it's hard to get passionate about food in a food court because there's so many different topics. Like we were focused for about a month on social justice, and now we're switching to the environment. And I'm just worried about not having a throughput that goes through all of them. I mean, that can create a passion over the year, and especially going into a really important election season. I'm wondering if we could choose one. I mean, is it better to focus on one topic that can motivate us going into both national and local elections, that we might be able to really move the chains on one topic rather than take on 15?
I think it's important, my experience, and I think Lisa will have additional perspective, is that it's very important to be strategic about when you utilize your voice with policymakers. So, for example, in talking about what the priorities are of the county council overall and Chairman Katz, and to talk about what the priorities are and their schedule for the committees. You look at our list of priorities, their list of priorities, and their schedule. So when their schedule's coming up is the most important time to bring out one of our priorities to do an advocacy touch. It doesn't make sense to talk about an advocacy issue that we're concerned about when there's nothing going on in the county council. So it's not like we're going to be talking about that whole list of issues all the time. It's at the time that it's most important to raise the voice of St. John's on that issue with the county council that that issue will be the priority, is my understanding.
And to add to that, I think the program is not meant to replace anything that anybody is doing. It's meant to complement and to help get more visibility for issues. And I think it's sort of specifically not intended to focus us all on 2020. I mean, many people, I'm sure everyone here is doing a lot in that regard on many different issues on both sides of the aisle. And this is more just to establish sort of a long-term voice in the community and have a long-term voice in policymaking that hopefully will impact things like elections, down the road, and how our local community views a lot of issues. I don't think we'll be able to accomplish something huge by November on that, but it's sort of, growing organically, laying seeds and planting seeds and hoping, for positive outcomes, both in the short term and in the long term, but probably not focusing specifically on 2020.
Thank you for thank you for this. This is fantastic work, and I'm so inspired by the organization and thought that you have put into this. So thank you. I just want to make a pitch, along with Sari's job postings, of thinking about ways to connect this all the way down to our very youngest parishioners in the community, because I know a lot of families that are incredibly busy, would like to get engaged, but also would like to find ways that we could actually really translate this to the people who, if you say long term, like that's long term. So I think there's an appetite for that, and I would just a pitch for, come talk to the third grade Sunday school class. Go talk to the sixth graders, and help them think about ways to talk to their parents and talk about opportunities to connect as you do this.
Great, thank you. Great.
It seems like a lot of issues, especially at the local level, don't come down to one position that's good and one that's bad. They come down to conflicts between things that people value both sides of. So we value economic development opportunities and green space. We value so it's a tension between positive values. And I just wonder, as a community, what is a process for saying St. John's wants X instead of Y on a particular issue, and how we achieve some kind of consensus around that, and how we hold space for people within the community who might see it a different way.
Well, I feel like there's been probably some of that already that's happened, so maybe somebody that's had experience with that in the congregation.
Yeah, so you have a very good point, and I think that it probably, and it certainly wasn't the design of this program to get involved on really divisive issues and have the parish stake out a position, because I think that is difficult. And depending on what the, on certain things like, SNAP-R and, lunches for kids in schools, we're probably all unified and want the same thing there. But there are a lot of issues where right, both sides are probably right, and it sort of depends on where you fall. And I think that our thought in that regard, especially starting out, is that people can opt in and opt out of this, for what we're sort of envisioning going forward once we establish some relationships and some issues, is that we will have a letter writing campaign once a month, and we will collect those letters, bring them in, meet with committee heads or our council member or whoever's in charge of the issue, and you can opt in or opt out of that. We won't be making a declaration that we are St. John's, and as a parish, we are parishioners, and this is our position. And then as we get more experience with the issues and how this is working, we will reevaluate. But that point is very well taken.
There's also an importance, I think, when we recognize that an issue might be divisive, is to spend time in dialogue, to talk about the different perspectives. And also, if there is a sense that the issue is important for St. John's to do something about, there are ways to go to policymakers to actually collect information rather than to stake out a position. And also, there are also ways to talk about what are our principles related to it rather than taking a position. So there are ways to address issues where you don't actually have to state a position, other than from your faith perspective, what the principles are related to dealing with the issues. That's another way about thinking about the issues.
So I just wanted to thank, hi, this is Becky. Thank you for raising that, Marnie, because I think that I've just been so inspired by all of the range and the things that St. John's, as Sari was saying, has started. Because of the political divisiveness in our culture, and especially where we live in DC, sometimes these issues can be charged. So just hearing about gun violence, I know I can go to assuming that there's a particular stand, one or against. And I was so encouraged and really heartened when I heard Ann talking about a group of people going down and speaking with gun owners. Because really, this is so beautiful to the extent that we live into our mission of being a crossroads of faith and life, and really a bridge that really gathers in all voices to take a position that, or maybe take a position is even too harsh, but to just continue that dialogue and to advocate for this balance and this living together in community. So it's an approach, and it really harkens back to the forums that we held, I want to say maybe a year ago, where there was that teaching about communication and conversation. Do you guys remember that? And there was like some really specific civil discourse. And to the extent that we can, as a parish, both within and with the community, continue to incorporate practice and build skills around that kind of conversation on these very charged political issues, that it will be a healing and a really spiritual presence in the face of so much division. So I'm really grateful for all of that, and for Marnie, for you raising that point.
Becky, I just want to thank you for that very eloquent presentation of exactly what I think, and I think we all agree, faith communities can do. And that's what's inspired us to reach out to gun owners because we felt that as a faith community, we could talk to other faith communities in that respectful way about differing perspectives. And I need to point out that that whole initiative occurred because a gun owner in our congregation came to us at one point and said, this is great work you're doing, but you're totally missing the perspective of responsible gun owners. I'm one. I want to be involved. And I was just so happy that St. John's was a place where someone could stand up and bring that other perspective to bear, and that shaped our orientation. And this is really an organic process in my experience in working with this community. It's organic, it develops. And I feel like we're open enough to be able to accommodate, to Marnie's very, very good point, respectful discussion of differing perspectives. So.
I want to make just a little bit of a plug for a resource that we have in the community that I've found to be really useful, and it's going to be blatantly self-serving since I'm a board member, but it's the Community Foundation, and their focus is really on raising awareness around issues in our county and our region. It's a regional organization, and meeting with the nonprofits to understand what other issues they're dealing with and making sure that they're dealing with them effectively. It goes and it does a very diligent vetting of the organization, looking at their books, at what their outcomes are, and one of the nice things that they have available to them are site visits. And so anybody in the community who's interested in going along on these site visits is welcome to. So whatever your area of interest might be, whether it's food insecurity, transitional housing, emergency housing, education, they really do it all, and they're really committed to making sure that we're doing what we can to work with our government and with the rest of the community to solve these problems. One of the things that we've noticed so significantly in such a short period of time is how our county has changed, and I think those of us down county may not always be so aware of that, but Montgomery County is really a tale of two cities, and our region is an incredibly diverse area, much more so than it was just very recently. And I know that I have become incredibly awakened to things that I had no idea about that so many people are struggling with, and it's been really valuable and concerning, but yet I'm hopeful. So.
Actually, I'm going to make a quick answer myself to Bill's question about metrics of success, which you always want to ask about. One is that the involvement just puts you in a much better mood, and I've observed this in many people. A small example was Thursday night. I was having dinner with someone who's very depressed about the impeachment trial reaching its expected outcome. But I'd spent Thursday with Margaret's group, saw District 18 people crowd into a small Maryland delegate's office to say, gun control, just get with it, do it, in a nice way. And I was in a much better mood. And I've seen that with many other people who are involved, even if they're involved in something where they're not going to see the results of their own efforts.
So any other questions or concerns or thoughts?
I have a thought, and I don't really understand the county government very well, but I was disappointed to read a while ago that the Regional Council of Governments, I believe it was, had set targets for how much affordable housing in each jurisdiction. And here, cost of living in Montgomery County, it's such a huge issue. And I was so disappointed that our county executive, Mark Ehrlich, who I had voted for, and I thought he was so progressive, was like, no, it's too dense. And I mean, I know one of his issues, one reason he got elected was, to slow growth, but I just feel like in the area of affordable, anyway, I was so disappointed. And I just wondered, is this something where if people in the parish thought this was a critical issue, affordable housing, meeting those targets, is that something you could lobby the county council? Can they overrule him, or, I don't know how that works.
Yeah. Do you want to? So I would say yes, actually they can, because it certainly was not sort of a legal framework that they set up. I think that, as the the Refugee Support Committee found, finding housing in Montgomery County for our family of 10 was all but impossible. We lucked out with the first place that we got, but other than that, it was, at one point, I think we were looking at putting them in 2 different houses and like splitting up the family next to, I mean, apartments, so, I mean, they would be close, but the principle is there, exactly. And I think, and that is one of the issues that Faith in Action has put on the list, because that is a very divisive issue in the county, but it is one where faith-based communities that want to ensure that there is affordable housing can have an impact in talking to the council. So that is definitely on the radar, and you're right, you're right. So if anyone is interested in joining, you could show up at Faith in Action anytime. We meet the first Sunday of every month. Today, including today at 12:30 in the library. Or you can sign up at the table, and I will link you in. And anytime, or you can email me with issues or topics you might want to focus on, and we could tee that up for like the next meeting, or tee it up for a discussion of how it might fit into the strategy. So lots of ways. You have one more question?
Well, just on that note, if assuming we're not at the Faith in Action meeting, and have you thought about how you're going to notify the parish of activities that are whatever you're advocating for? Is that something that'll show up in the bulletin, or how will we know about these things as they come up?
Yeah, I think we're envisioning like a report that would go into eCrossroads, a sort of short report, and we're certainly, like maybe once a year we could do a forum, or to update as it's growing and as the issues get focused or refocused. So. All right, well then in that case, I thank you very much for coming, and look forward to working on this and hearing from all of you.